Hello, everybody. My name is Alexander Jeffrey. I'm one of the co founders of Crafty, and this is the Behind the Lens series where we sit down with filmmakers from our channel who have made these awesome short films and ask them questions and get the kind of nitty gritty on how everything went behind the scenes. I'm sitting down today with Jonnie Stapleton. His short film is Stag. It's now streaming on our channel. At Crafty, we showcase two short films every week with an emphasis on heart and humanity. So be sure to subscribe, and we have new stuff coming for you every week. But for now, let's sit down with Jonnie Stapleton and find out about his short film, Stag. Jonnie,
Yo,
welcome to Crafty.
excited to be here.
Dude, when we started this platform, you were like obviously one of the first filmmakers I thought of because we wanted to do feel good, heartfelt movies, and that's just like what you do best. And Stag in particular is just so much fun. So thanks for letting us share it on the channel.
Absolutely. I mean, that's like I always love that when definitely in like the mindset of trying to have the audience have fun, but then if you can like tug on those heartstrings a little bit, it's that's a sweet spot. Yeah.
Totally, totally. Well, I think the audience is going to eat this up, and really excited to see how they react to it. It's such a fun movie. It was fun. It was fun going back and like revisiting it after all these years. So I wanted to ask you and like kind of dive into questions about the making of the movie. How did this story come to be? Like, where was the inspiration? How did this kind of evolve?
Well, it was very, very loosely based on like a real situation that I went through where for me, it was basically a really close female friend of mine that I was hoping would be more than a friend. And we agreed to sign up to this swing dancing class. And right off the bat, she got this job where it was going to require her to travel and it was going to be very like all encompassing of her life. She was like super sad that she couldn't take the dance class with me. And I was like, well, we already paid for it, so I'm gonna like just try to do it. And I do have like Alex, you know this. I have like a history in dance, and I love dancing. I'm not great at couples dancing, so I was like, well, this would be a good opportunity for me to like build those skills. And I like swing dancing, and I was hoping we were going to get to like switch partners in there, which is something that happens a lot in dance classes, but that was not the case. So I pretty much spent the whole series of classes dancing by myself, which is, naturally going to be like a little bit of a humbling and humiliating experience. And I was struggling with it. But like as I went along, I started to kind of like just let my guard down and like have more fun and just try to like get as much out of the experience as possible. So and and afterwards I couldn't help but think like, this feels like kind of a fun idea. I don't know, it's probably not enough for a feature, but it feels like it could be enough for a short film. And when I got to know Herb, I met Herb through a fellow actor friend, Corey, from like a previous film, The Man from Mars. And I loved Herb. He had this sweetness to him, this like just genuine. Sorry about the cat back there. Um, he had this genuine lovability, and I started like working with him where we would just do the dance lessons together. He didn't have dance experience, but he was like pretty coordinated and he was so game to learn. So basically we started to just you know I would meet with him like a few times a week and just start like teaching him these moves as we're writing the script and figuring out, and the whole process was very quick. It was like a month long from like that's like writing it, um like producing it, shooting it, him learning the dances, all happened within like the span of a month. And we did it. And
Wow.
yeah, it
So
was,
I didn't know that he was attached before there was even a script.
yeah, he was down, and then he had like kind of ideas for like the character, and the character actually did change a little bit based on his idea. Like what I we kind of molded it more to fit him than maybe what I had
Mhm.
originally pictured for it. Like I had the idea in the past, but then once, a lot of times when you find like the right actor, you really want to like hone it in to them, which is what we did. And I felt like it worked well for that.
Well, that's awesome. You kind of answered my next question, which was about the choreography. And I know, so he was learning the dances as you're writing the script, as you're developing this thing that you're going to come to shoot Shreveport and film. But then you get to Shreveport, and these other actors also have to learn the dances. So can you talk about like the process of getting everybody else up to speed?
Oh yeah, I mean, so we had like our two dance instructors who were again people who like had like dance experience but maybe not swing experience, so it's kind of fun. They're literally getting there and like the morning before you shoot, I'm teaching them, and I'm not that experienced of like a swing dance person, but like I'm trying to show them enough of the basics that they feel comfortable to basically kind of embody those dance instructor roles. And they were both like, so good for those parts. So they learned it, and then basically then like taught the group. So like once we got there, even before we started shooting, I basically had them teach our eight. I think we had eight other like sort of not necessarily extras, but like our other like dance class members, and they basically went through and taught everybody else before we started filming. And we would just kind of turn the camera on a little bit to kind of capture that natural kind of like classroom
Learning.
vibe. Exactly, exactly. And the other
Yeah.
people didn't have to be that good, but luckily some of our other people in there were also like naturally coordinated. It doesn't necessarily work if none of them, because you need to show that people are getting better throughout the class. And yeah, and it was just like a really kind of a fun organic way of doing that scene where they could learn, and then through the teaching of it, the instructors got much more comfortable with it because it's like they learned it, then they taught it, then they taught it on film. And then obviously we're like shooting it, so anytime like they're messing up or they're forgetting how to do it, we're like, edit that part out. Like, oh, this is how you do the triple step, or you know.
That's awesome. That's really cool. You can feel that sort of like behind the scenes fun when you watch the movie. You can just tell that everybody's having a blast making it.
Thanks, man.
So I want to talk about Richard Greeley, because he's having a huge breakout in Barry right now, as the prison guy,
Mhm.
and is awesome in that show, and he's awesome in Stag as well. So how did you meet him and end up casting him?
That was kind of like an interesting situation, and I feel like a great lesson in just sometimes if you have somebody you're interested in, you just got to reach out to their reps and just see if they'll do it. Like, so, he's done so much. He's been in Casino, Office Space. Like, he's been in like countless things. Is always like, oh, that guy. A lot of people might not know his name, but they know his face and they know his voice
Yeah.
and they know his
Yeah.
mustache. Like they know when it's him. So
Yeah.
initially Herb had a friend who had like kind of worked with him, and I was hoping that friend, that other filmmaker, would kind of put us in touch. But naturally he didn't necessarily, this other guy, maybe feel like the most comfortable facilitating that. But he's like, his reps are
Sure.
great. Just reach out to his reps and like go through them. And I hadn't like had much experience with that, so I was a little nervous about it. But I just reached out to them, and it was a very reasonable rate, like within our budget, and he was like excited to do it. And not only like was he like available, he flew in, he did the shoot on his birthday, and he's the type
Oh,
of
wow.
guy who not only like you rarely need to do a second take, like he kind of gives you everything you need on like the first take. He's down to do more takes, but he was so fun and easy to work with. He's helping like carry equipment because we had a very small crew for it, and with like friends like doing favors to basically like help fill out the crew roles. And he's helping like load equipment up and like carry things. I mean, he was so great to work with and so fun. And it was just one of those lessons of, sometimes if you want someone like interesting, or maybe you want somebody who's like kind of a face that's like worked in things, just reach out to the reps and see, because they might not be busy. They might like the project and just want to come and have some fun in Louisiana, which he also loved. We got him some, catfish and crawfish. We got him all like the fixins and everything. And I think he liked that. He loves talking about, his on-set experiences. So he's also fun in that way. You can like pick his brain about any shoot. He'll tell you great stories.
Awesome. I love it. Okay, so I want to ask the question that I like to ask every filmmaker about their short, which is, I think the movie turned out brilliantly. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. But, you as the filmmaker obviously see things that you wish you could go back and fix. So if you had a time machine and you could get in that time machine and go back to this shoot, what would you do differently?
Great question. And that's like kind of one of those loaded ones. It's like you really have to think about it. sometimes like the things that like we maybe don't always like love about our movies are the things that other people don't necessarily care about. Um, for instance, this is going to sound kind of silly, but like the house in like the scene where his fiance breaks up with him was just like that. Just happened to be the house that was available for us to shoot in. It didn't necessarily, in my mind, like make the most sense for the location. You kind of imagine something like a little bit more like kind of small or cozy and homey, and that was like a much bigger like house. So it was like very echoey. So you have things like that. It's like, oh, I ideally would have liked to shoot that in like a different location that felt more right. Maybe not just put them in like a very plain white T-shirt that's like, uh, it's like it's kind of silly things. Like in a perfect world, there was a version of the song "Dancing with Myself." The I think it's Billy Idol.
Mm-hmm.
There was like a jazz version of it that we really wanted, and I tried to reach out to the people with the rights to it. And it sounds almost like a swing song. It's like ba da dum ba dum ba dum ba da bum, a dancing with myself, and it was like it was a little on the nose, but it was also very fun. Would have been. I love the song that we ended up using for that montage, but that would have been fun. Oh, and then also this is just like again, kind of a nitpicky thing. Like for like the final dance scene, I feel like we have the audience clap too much throughout it, and I think I think I think if we pulled back on that a little bit, like maybe like pulled out maybe one or two times where they just all start cheering, I think it would have made the moments where they do start cheering a little bit hold a little more weight. But at the time when we shot it, we had our master, and I would just randomly tell everybody to start clapping and cheering, partially to like
Get
give
them amped up.
her
Yeah.
that like energy to work with. But then whenever you
Yeah.
use that master and you see people clapping, you have to put back in the clapping. Um, and so these are like the small things you look like, yeah, that would have probably landed a little bit better if we wouldn't have had so much applause and yeah, and then I guess those are some of the main things. They're like a little bit more like logistical, maybe like shooting again, like in locations that where you have like a little bit more space, so the camera doesn't always need to be like right up on them. And another visual thing is like when you're doing those simpler scenes, not really the dance scenes, which I'm pretty happy with how they turned out, but things where you can have like depth behind an actor. That always is like more appealing. And we were sometimes filming like because we're filming wherever we can with like people who are doing favors for us and letting us film in their apartment and like and work working for free. That then you go with what you got, and still happy with how it turned out, but you think like, oh yeah, if you had like a you know and I guess being able to like pay more people might go back and
Sure. Sure.
want to do that, like give some of the people who helped out more money for their help on the shoot. So yeah, those would be the
So
things
it's sounding to me like you would basically just like to redo the whole movie.
no. No, I mean you get
No,
to,
I'm messing with you.
but very very happy with how it turned out. I mean, at a certain point when you're working on a movie, you kind of just gotta you have to let it be what it is. And and then sometimes
No,
like
yeah,
yeah, you might not like be completely content with it, but as time passes, you really appreciate it for what it is.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said at the beginning most people aren't gonna care about those things, and it's totally nitpicky. I think it's a great movie, and I think the intimacy of the environment and the shots and the way you staged everything really really works well. Yeah, so I want to ask you some sort of not related to Stag questions, some just sort of general filmmaking questions. The first one is, what advice would you give to a young filmmaker who's maybe just graduating film school, or maybe they're just starting down this path of wanting to become a filmmaker? What would you tell them, or what piece of advice would you give to them?
I guess I would just for sake of timing, because there's like so many things you could give, but I would say make friends with a good DP that you are excited to collaborate with and is excited to shoot and just wants to shoot, because that is one thing I feel very very fortunate in that a long time ago I made great friends with Domenico Grasso, who is the one who shot Stag and like pretty much everything else that I've made. And I think in addition to that is like you can find your team, you can find your creative team, and maybe you kind of uh, are malleable with like the roles and like the different things that you learn how to do as much as you can learn how to do on a set. I wish I knew how to do more things on a set. So I wish I could like fill in more of those responsibilities. We have Mike Nicholas, who's also on our team, who's kind of like a jack of all trades, who he can like do sound, he can edit, he can first AD. He's like does like fills in a bunch of roles. He writes, he does like basically whatever we need. And I think you find yourself, whether that's like a person you write with, or a person who shoots, or a person who does sound, you try to find your team of people who are just excited to make stuff, because obviously in the beginning you don't have much money. And then the other thing I would say, which I mentioned earlier, is like don't be afraid to some of these actors. I mean, obviously if you're looking for like the Brad Pitts, or like the like those people are going to be maybe not as get attainable, but if you see somebody that you think would be good, it doesn't hurt. Reach out to the reps, see if they're free, see like what their rate would be, or if they're down to do like a low budget thing, if they like the script. If you can shoot all their stuff in a day or maybe 2 days, you'd be surprised. It might be more affordable than you think, and it might kind of like level up your project a little bit, and get maybe more eyes on it, and might be able to get into maybe more festivals or get more people to see it, because you have like a little bit of that don't necessarily want to say like star power, but it has like some recognizable talent in there, which can sometimes open doorways. So those would be my two pieces.
Yeah, that's great. And actually, both of those sort of touch on something that I seem to find myself repeating to young filmmakers, which is, everything starts with the script. And if you spend the time on that part of the process, that is, it's obviously costs your time, but it's free to you. Mm-hmm. To really develop and hone that script to be the best that it could be. You'd be surprised at the talent, not only in front of the camera, but also behind the camera that are willing to work on it. And, like you said, finding that DP with Domenico for you, like sending that really polished script to an up and coming DP that you like their work, like it's going to go a long way if that script is properly formatted, if it's an easy read, if it's a good story. And that's the part that you have control over.
That's so true. Very well said. Yeah, exactly.
So this is a question that I like to ask everybody too, and it's not what is your favorite film, because I hate that question, and that for me changes on a daily basis, right?
Yeah.
So what film do you find yourself revisiting the most, or watching over and over again the most?
That's so tough. I think big influences for me in regards to the stuff I make would be Love Actually, Richard Curtis, and probably a little bit of John Hughes. Movies like Uncle Buck, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Home Alone, I know he produced that. Yeah, I think those would definitely be, Ghostbusters is a big film that my family like rewatches. I don't know how much Ghostbusters like necessarily like influences, but maybe there is some like tonal stuff. But yeah, those would be the things that I feel like I tend to carry over into the things that we make. It's those things that are hopefully funny and also kind of feel good with some fun, a little bit of dancing in there, a little bit of, some of those movies have dancing in there. Even if it's somebody in the car dancing around, there's usually some element of that. And it'd be difficult to find a movie that I've done, unless it's a scary movie, that doesn't have some form of dancing in it. So yeah. And then I think for Stag, I think the movie Shall We Dance with Richard Gere was definitely a big influence as well.
So have you thought about how to incorporate dance into the horror movies that you want to do?
It's so interesting you mentioned that, because I don't want to give too much away. But just the other day, I was talking to my fiance Rachel, who's like also like co-writer and co-producer on like some stuff that we're working on. We talked about a scary movie that involved dancing, and that's all I'm going to say for right now. This is like maybe something way down the road, but I may have, or we may have finally found a way to merge these two passions of mine, which are scary movies and dancing. And obviously
I
something that
love
would
it.
be fun, but it's funny you asked that because it literally that conversation just happened a few nights ago, and it might be the birth of something down the road that is very wild and different. And I'll keep it at that for right now.
Well, if you know, cut to 10 years down the road, this thing is a huge success. You heard it here on Crafty first. So
This is the first. You're literally, apart from Rachel, you're the first person hearing about this. So it is. It's
love
so
it.
funny you asked that question because it might be doable.
Amazing, amazing. So what's next for you? What have you been up to since Stag?
So we have been kind of like in development on a scary movie, something that would be obviously thrilling, like kind of like a ride for the audience, but also still have some heart in there. I love when, like, scary movies have heart in there. Like, I think M. Night Shyamalan has done a nice job of this with movies, like Signs and Sixth Sense. But so we're kind of crafting what that story could be and working it out right now. And hopefully that's something that within the next year or two, we will have the opportunity to shoot, ideally, in or around Shreveport, because we love filming there. It's an amazing filmmaking community. And, it's like we would much rather shoot there versus Los Angeles. Yeah, so I think that would be the next thing. And in the moment, we're just kind of producing some very low budget, kind of DIY horror shorts to just kind of test out things. And that would be the other thing. Feel free, as far as, filmmaking advice, to just test stuff out. It can even be things that nobody's going to end up seeing. You can just kind of like experiment and try things, and maybe it turns out great. Maybe you share it, or maybe it's just an opportunity that you're going to learn and figure out what does or doesn't work. So we're also doing that a little bit right now.
Amazing, and that's such good advice. Well, it has been an absolute pleasure chatting with you, and thank you again for sharing your beautiful work on Crafty, and really excited to see how people react to it.
Thank you so much, Alex. This has been a blast, and yeah, I'm excited for it to get out there, more people to see it, and hear their thoughts. It's gonna be fun.